Since we started with Purdue's offense, let's talk about Ohio State's defense for a moment. Been some interesting conversation this week, some of it by fans, some of it by media members around Ohio State's linebacker play. And there have been a lot of people clamoring for C.J. Hicks to get more opportunities. Jim Knowles certainly gave, a nod to Cody Simon in the way that he's been not only playing but practicing and saying, I've got to find a way to get him more live reps because he's earned it. I know we talked a lot about the game when we did our film review on Monday, but just from an overarching perspective, are Ohio State's linebackers performing the way you expected them to this year?
I honestly, at that broad of a question, no. Right, we came into it and saying that those two guys, Steel Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg, are going to be the anchors of your defense. And yes, there is definitely stuff that they do that's intangible things that can't be replaced, such as just being the quarterbacks of that unit, making sure guys are lined up correctly, making sure the back end's lined up correctly, and doing stuff that a fifth-year senior like Tommy Eichenberg will do. So that stuff you can't replace. However, you want to see more production out of them. Some of the stuff, and we didn't get into a lot of it, but you can go back and find it. Objectively speaking, on Saturday, neither of them played good. Neither of them played well. Excuse me.
Tommy had 13 tackles. He
had 13 tackles.
He had a big stat sheet game, but you're right. There were more moments than normal where he was kind of locked up.
And it was it wasn't super out of place, but just kind of getting blocked and just stuff that they can improve on, and they need to, because obviously we keep saying it, but the competitions are going to start ratcheting up. But I almost think it could be like this, Brennan. It could be like a wake up call to them, and not that they need it, but hey, they're the conversation this week. It isn't Kyle McCord. It isn't getting the ball to Marvin Harrison. It isn't the running backs. It isn't the conversation this week's been kind of primarily around the linebackers. And it's this is a really good opportunity this week to come in and play great and just be really, really good. And they have a really good opportunity to do so. So I almost think it could be it could end up being a net positive. Last week kind of took a step back, but now this week, they can kind of improve and show everybody that, hey, we are the right people for this job.
Well, I think Josh Proctor, Lathan Ransom, and Sonny Styles have put this defense in a position where it's taking some pressure off of the guys in front of them. Last year, I felt like there was so much pressure on the back end of the defense because they kept giving up big plays, and whether it was their fault or not, they were the ones that ultimately were, you've got the hero shot and the goat shot, right? The hero makes the play, the goat's the one that's on the wrong end of it. And too often last year, Denzel Burke in particular didn't really have a great year. I'm not saying he played terrible, but he certainly didn't play like he did his freshman year. And he's taken a massive step forward here in 2023. So I think the fact that the back end of the defense is playing as well as they are, and that maybe they're not as susceptible to getting burned because the Buckeyes are bringing so much pressure from their linebackers and from their defensive line. It's kind of everybody's helping everybody. And maybe that doesn't give you the same overall just eye-popping, gaudy, awesome stats, but it's an easier game to coach and to play, and it's a team you can get behind because you feel like, all right, fine, they may give up some first downs. You might give up a 10 or 15 or maybe even a 20-yard play once in a while. But Ohio State still hasn't given up a 40-yard play all season after giving up 8 of them in their 2 losses combined last year. So they've really taken that big overarching problem, essentially just eradicated it entirely.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point. How much did last year carry over where it was hey, the linebackers had to be so spectacular because the guys up behind them, weren't playing that well, and in a lot of different areas, not necessarily even just throwing the ball. Maybe even if it's a run fit thing, hey, last year Tommy had to cover up 2 gaps because he didn't trust what was behind him. So how much did that carry over? You never know. But that could be another thing too, where hey, Coach Knowles pulls Tommy and Steele into the meeting room, and it's hey, just what we're going to do a film session. Just watch Latham. Just watch these guys on the back end. Watch Sonny. You trust them, literally trust them. And you just have to do your job, whether that's plug this gap or get in this coverage or blitz this way. Just do your job, because these guys on the back end, not only are they not a liability anymore, but they are a strength of this defense, and you can trust it. And now just take that burden off you and just do your job. You wonder if that's part of the conversation as well.